Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen. I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I'm doing another monthly Q&A answering your questions from the community tab. There is a new post there for next month, so any questions you want to ask me in the month of March, I will do a roundup at the start of April. So let's get into your questions. The first question is it possible to improve your writing speed without diminishing or decreasing the quality? The short answer is yes. However, as I've said a couple of times in the past, when you first start writing, you should try and do it in small slices of time. There's no point trying to sit down when you're first writing a book and you've never completed a draft ever in your life, and you're going to sit down and say, right, I'm going to write for 4 hours and just blast through it, because you won't be able to do it. You might do it once or twice by some miracle, but after that, it just won't happen. Like anything else, writing is a muscle. You need to practice at it. So do it for 20 minutes, see how you get on. If that works, stretch it to half an hour, stretch it to an hour. And when you get to about an hour, I would then see if you can write faster without diminishing the quality. There's no point stretching it over much longer than that. The difficulty is, as you work on books and as you work on ideas and as you progress, you start to challenge yourself more, which means your speed can increase or it can go down a bit because you start to think more about your stories and your characters. I always want to do better than the last time. I never want to be accused of phoning it in. So writing speed can naturally just increase as you learn your craft, as you get into it, as you practice, like anything else. But I wouldn't set out with a specific goal of saying, right, I did 50 words, this time I'm going to do 100, I'm just going to keep going and get faster and faster and faster. It doesn't always work like that. It's not like running the 100 meters. The second question is, am I a full-time author or a part-time author, and how do I schedule other tasks around it within my life? So, I am a part-time author. All of my friends who are authors, apart from 2 of them that I know, have full-time or part-time jobs. This is a reality that I've mentioned many, many times to people, that being a mid-lister, which is effectively what I am, it means that the money I get from my books isn't enough to pay for a full income. Most authors live in 2-people households with their partner, their wife, whoever it might be, and they have an income. They have a normal income from their day job, full-time or part-time, and they get some supplementary income from their books. And that's how it is for most people and for most authors. How I fit it in around anything else, just work, it's just practice and trial and error. Sometimes I stay up late, sometimes I get up early, sometimes I do stuff on the weekends and write. Sometimes you just make small sacrifices. It's kind of easier now with TV and everything so much on demand. You're not slave to a schedule. So maybe your favourite show that you've been dying to watch this week, you just save it and you use that hour for writing. Or you write in your lunch break. Or if you're on the train, you write on the train on the way in and the way back from work. Lots of other people have done this. I've told the famous story before about Peter Brett working on The Warded Man, also known as The Painted Man. He wrote on his phone into work every day, got home at night, typed up his notes. He did that over a course of, I think it was about a year, and that's how he wrote his first novel. That's how he found time. So make small sacrifices in your life, move things around, get up early, write in your lunch hour, stay up late, whatever you need to do. You must finish the first draft. That's something else I always say. Get to the end of that first draft. The next question is more specific to my genre. It is, what makes fantasy fiction commercial? Is it the quasi-medieval setting, or is it something else? Is it something deeper? So, given that this video is on YouTube, it kind of depends upon when you're watching this. If you're watching this fairly recently from when I put it out, then my answer is probably useful. If you're watching it in 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years' time, it won't be as useful. And that's kind of the point. I can tell you what's working now. I can tell you what's popular now. What makes something commercial, that's a little bit more difficult. There's a big balance, really, when you're writing. You have to kind of make decisions about how ruthless you're going to be as a writer. Are you going to write something that has the widest possible appeal in the hope that it will attract a massive audience, that you think, if I use these tropes and I do this and do that, those are very popular, and I bring some of that in, then I should touch a number of these areas and people quite like that kind of thing, and then therefore I think it will do well. Like you're baking a cake and putting all these different ingredients in. You can try that, It might work, but probably not, because you haven't really got a clear voice. You're trying to find what will work. You don't actually have anything particular to say. As for the setting, people are quite happy with the medieval setting, but a lot of people now want something else. They want something different. They want you to push the envelope, because we've seen the basic Western styled medieval setting thousands of times at this point. Now, as I always say, that's not to say you can't do it. That's not to say you can't find something interesting, a different twist, a different angle, new characters, new magic, whatever it might be. Your world building is very different. I've done a whole slew of videos on world building. I'll put links below. Go and watch them. So there's lots of things you can bring to your fantasy world to make them different, make them interesting within that kind of medieval space. But if you can do something radically different, why not? Why not have a go at that? The market is crowded. That's something else I always say. So you want to be able to stand out. You want your books to be noticed. You want people to pick it up and be desperate to read the next one when it comes out. And there again, that comes back to voice and to having a vision. So it is deeper than just the setting. It is deeper than just picking and choosing bits and pieces. It's about you. It's about the story that you want to tell. It's about the things that you want to say with your book. The next question is, do you end up befriending or knowing other clients of your agent? So as I mentioned, I'm traditionally published, therefore I have a literary agent who works with me and with all of the main publishers on my behalf. And she has a number of other fantasy authors and non-fantasy authors on her list. I've come to know some of them by attending events, by talking to them online, by just becoming friends with them that way. You don't have to. I tend to know more of the fantasy ones better than the others. There again, just because we write the same kind of stuff, we attend the same kind of events. She has a few kind of crime writers. They probably know each other a little bit better as well, because there again, they see each other at the same kind of functions. We're not necessarily in cliques, and if I run into other crime writers, I'm not going to be like, oh no, you write awful crime, how revolting, ugh. But, you know, if I meet them at a larger function, you know, they're great. I talk to them online, I talk to them on Twitter. They're lovely people. So it's good to have friends that understand what you're going through. As I've said a couple of other times, when you talk to your friends and family who aren't writers about this thing, they'll try and be sympathetic. They'll try and understand all the pain and the anguish and the torment of rejections and all the things you go through. But after a while, their patience is going to wear just a little thin. So talking to other writers who understand it and who get it is brilliant. It's just the best kind of feeling, and it's the best kind of group that you can find. So I'd recommend finding other writers within your genre if you can, online or in other places, at events, local writing group, whatever it might be. This is quite an interesting question. It's for writers who like to work on more than one project. Is this generally discouraged by agents? The short answer is yes, but probably not for the reasons you're thinking. Let's say you're working on a book, you finish it, and you've got a couple of others in progress. You send it off to an agent, and the agent says, yes, that's great, I love it, we work on it, and I'll take it to a publisher. And then the publisher says, yes, now you've got a book deal. Brilliant. Maybe it's for 2 books, maybe it's for 3 books, whatever it might be. You will be given a contract and you will be given a deadline. So whilst the first book is going into edits with the editor and then it's coming back to you, you could start work on the second book under contract. If you're writing a number of other things and you miss the deadlines, that's on you. If you can write all these other projects and still keep to your deadlines, and not just the deadlines for the book, but also the other stages that come along. I've done a video, I'll post a link below or a link up here, about the traditional publishing stages that your manuscript will normally go through. So this is the first edit, the copy edit, the proof, all this kind of thing, all these terms that you hear floating around. And these are the number of stages that your book goes through before it ends up on the shelf. So if you're working on other projects that aren't under contract and you can do that whilst maintaining a pace with everything else that's going on, great. But even when you come to the end of that contract, if it's gone well and the publisher is happy and your agent is happy and the sales are good, they'll want you to do another book and another series. And there again, if you've got a number of other projects that are half done, can you work on them and come up with something completely new, or are you going to move one of those off the kind of half done pile and go forward with that and pitch it? When I had my first trilogy with Orbit, I was a debut author, and what they tend to do, they don't always do it, is they accelerate the release schedule. So I had a trilogy and they said, right, this first book's to come out in September. We want your second book to come out 6 months' time, and your third book to come out 6 months after that. So within 12 calendar months, all 3 books in the trilogy have come out on the shelves. You know yourself when you go into a bookshop and you pick up the first one in a series and you think, oh, this is brilliant, when's the next one out? Once you loved it, it's a year. It can feel like quite a long time. So a debut author, if it can bring them out faster, that's great. So what they did with me was I had a longer lead time up front. Book 1 was done, that went into edits. I started immediately working on book 2 and then planning book 3. And here's where it gets a little complicated. And this is another reason why you probably shouldn't work on more than one book at once that isn't under contract. I was working on edits for book 1 whilst writing book 2 and planning book 3. Then book 1 got to the end of this life cycle and it started coming out. I started edits on book 2 and now I'm writing book 3. This went on for basically 2 years of my life. I was constantly working on 2 or 3 books at the same time that were all under contract. Yeah, kind of insane, kind of crazy, kind of bonkers. The books came out on time, came out on schedule, did very well, started work on the next trilogy. Now at that point I'd kind of caught up with myself. I didn't have a 2-year lead time and I couldn't write a book in 4 months. It just wasn't possible with my day job, which I mentioned that I have. So my books then came out annually, and that's kind of the standard thing. It leaves some time to do other smaller projects if I wanted to, and I can fit it in around everything else, but for most people 1 book a year or 1 book every couple of years is the standard. So short answer is don't work on stuff that's not under contract unless you're really, really good at time management. The next question is, how do you deal with constant rejections other than working on the next book? In my first video that I did, one of the early ones, I talked about how I got an agent and the fact that it took me many books and many years before I was picked up by an agent and then a publisher. So for those who are a little bit sensitive, I'm just going to warn you now, I'm going to swear in answer to this question and to the ones that come after that, because I have very strong emotions about this. So this person who asked me the question said they felt like they need to take a break from writing because the waves of rejection were really kind of knocking their confidence. And I understand that, absolutely. And yes, someone might be saying, well, it's easy for you sat there with your book deal and your agent and blah, blah, blah and all that shit. But the thing is, it took me over a decade of writing and a lot of fucking books to get where I am now. So it was hard. It was really, really hard. Isn't that what they like on YouTube? All the videos say be authentic, so I'm going to be authentic and be myself. It's fucking tough, man. It's just really, really painful. You spend all of this time working on a book, years, you know, so many hours when you could be doing something else. As we talked about, how do you find the time? You make sacrifices, you do something else. You don't go out for an evening with your mates, or you don't go, whatever it might be. You want to focus on the writing because it's important, but that means putting aside something else that's also important. So you spend all this time on the book and you work on it, you work on it, you send it off, and if you get rejected, 99% of the time, they won't tell you why. They'll just say something like, it doesn't quite fit with us at the moment, or it's not quite right for us, or we're not really sure about it. Or sometimes you just get your material sent back. When it was in the old days that I submitted on paper, now it's on an email. Sometimes I've heard, more often than not, people just get ghosted. They just get no reply. And the kind of submission guidelines say that if you haven't heard anything from 6 months, assume it's a no. And that really hurts. It's just painful because you don't know why. Nobody's telling you why it's not any good, why you're rejected, what's wrong with it, what do I need to work on, how can I get better? If you're not told how to get better and improve, how can you possibly know that the next book is going to be any good? Practicing, yes, that's what you should do. Get feedback from other people, absolutely, friends, family, writing groups, online forums, whatever, yes. But you also need that input from people who actually know what they're talking about, and that's harder to get. You can approach some agents and ask them if they've got time to give you some more personal feedback, but most of the time they just haven't got that time, because think about all the submissions that are coming in all of the time, thousands, and people, if they all want that little bit more information, that'll take up all of their day. And of course, remember, they're reading submissions on top of doing their normal day job. So working with their existing clients, working on book deals, working with publishers, working on, contracts and financing and all this kind of stuff. The extra stuff is reading new submissions. And as the list grows, that time squeezes into their personal life. This isn't a boo-hoo poor agents. This is just a reality of the situation, what it means in traditional publishing. The only thing I can say how I dealt with the rejection is that it's a little bit of arrogance, but also a little bit of having confidence in your own work. You've got to kind of believe that you've got something special. You've got to believe in your work. And sometimes putting it aside and coming back and looking at it with some hindsight, you can see where the problems are. I would definitely say if you get rejected and you've gone through the whole list of agents and everyone's said no, and you're just feeling like you want to give up, put your book away, close your keypad, close your laptop, whatever it might be, and take a break. Now, I don't mean for a couple of days or even a week. Take as long as you need until you think or you're desperate and you want to come back and start writing again. I did it. I kept coming back because I had to write. People say, oh, if you'd never been picked up, would you have just kept writing? Probably. I don't know. Would I have explored self-publishing as an option? Maybe. But I wanted to be traditionally published. Yes, self-publishing is great. It is useful. It is good. But it shouldn't be the kind of knee-jerk reaction that I got rejected, therefore they don't know what they're talking about, my work is superior, it's brilliant. It's the first book that I've ever written, and it's 500,000 words, but it's amazing, and it'll sell 1 million copies, and it probably won't. It's probably a piece of shit, and it needs work, and it needs editing down. And you need to learn that through doing, taking a break, and looking at it with hindsight, and without the rose-tinted glasses. That's what you need to do. But take a break. Don't feel guilty about not writing, and come back to it when you want to write. That's all I can really say. The next question is authortube reliable for advice? And related to this, a question I also received is, which is better, traditional publishing or self-publishing? Which one should I go for? So these two questions are connected, really. The first thing to establish is trust. Is the person talking to you on authortube, what are their credentials? What have they done? What is their proof that they know what they're talking about? As I say at the start of every video, I was traditionally published. Google me, you'll find all the books online that I've done. I've written 8 fantasy books under contract. So, have I got a clue about what I'm talking about in terms of traditional publishing? Yes. More specifically, fantasy publishing? Yeah, probably. Given that I've done it with 3 contracts, I probably know what I'm talking about. However, there are a number of people on authortube who seem to have done it the other way around. They've started giving out loads of advice without any real skills, any real knowledge. They've just kind of had a go and then put out some advice, grown their platform, and then they self-published a book. And the book has done okay, but it's sold on the back of them giving advice rather than actually it sold really, really well and then attracted an audience. So do you trust that person? Are they reliable? Do they know what they're talking about because they've got a big audience? Or do they know what they're talking about because the advice they give is actually useful, is actually clear, is actually helpful to you? So it's up to you to decide. All I can say is you should interrogate the people on there. You should critically analyse them and find out who they are when they're not talking to you on YouTube. Do you trust them? That's what it comes down to. There are some people on authortube, the advice that they offer is awful. It's absolutely and utterly shit. It's biased because what they want you to do is believe that their advice is absolutely the only way you can achieve any kind of level of success. And what they're asking you to do is go into self-publishing. Now, nothing against self-publishing. I have friends who are self-published. This isn't a go at them. This is a go at the people who make out that it's the only way forward, it's the best thing ever, and it's the instant way to riches and fame and working full-time on your books and just living the dream. If that was true, everybody would be doing it, and it's just nonsense. It's just lies. They're absolutely biased in the information they're giving you. Now, to be clear, on the flip side of this, I'm not saying traditional publishing is the best thing ever in the world and it's the only way to guarantee success and you'll be rich and blah, blah. As I've just pointed out earlier on in this video, all the authors I know, apart from 2, have a day job. So that's reality. I'm going to give you honest advice based on experience and from being in the industry. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. I'm just telling you the reality of it. Now, I admit, traditional publishing and self-publishing, to be fair, is hard and it's tough and it's not easy to do. And if you can't cope with that reality, then, maybe writing isn't for you. My goal with this channel is to offer you advice, give you some of the skills and the knowledge to improve your writing, to avoid some of the pitfalls and the mistakes that I made, whether you're going in traditional publishing or you're just working on your book. How you write a cover letter and query letter is useful for traditional publishing, but equally how you do other things, how you work on characters and world building. There's lots of videos I've done about all of that stuff. So my goal is to build a community here where we all help each other improve. And me, I'm still learning. I'm not the best writer in the world ever. I'm constantly growing, and that's part of what I'm doing here as well. By talking about these things, it makes me think about them more deeply, which can only improve the work that I'm doing. To that end, I have set up a private Discord called Headspace. There's a link below. And the people on there, what we do is we share our work, we talk about things, we talk about how we've been rejected, how we deal with it, share our covering letters, share the first few chapters, critique them, and all this kind of thing. As I've said, if you want that kind of a forum online, there's lots of other places. If you don't have something like that, come and join Headspace. We'd love to have you, and you'll find we're quite a focused group of people who want to generally improve our work. And that's what the goal is. It's not to sell you on traditional publishing or have a very biased opinion on self-publishing, which is what some people do. At no point will I ever say that I can guarantee you something. Like if I say, if you follow all of my advice, you'll get an agent and you'll get a contract. You absolutely will. You'll be able to write full time. Absolutely yes. You just have to follow these steps. There is no silver bullet. There's no guaranteed path to do it. And anybody that tells you they can do that is a fucking liar. They're just lying to you. They want you to believe. They want you to buy their stuff and buy into the way of whatever they're doing. They're just snake oil salespeople. This is what they're doing. And it's built around a cult of personality in some places. And I see it a lot on YouTube with some of the really big authortube channels. And it's just kind of sickening, to be honest. Some of the authortubers are saying that self-publishing is the best way, it's the only way, and it's what you should all be doing. And quite frankly, it's just not. It's just not true at all. And some of the advice they give is so badly researched that it's just a joke. And I'm going to dissect a piece here, and I want you to think about it critically for yourself and all of your advice that you'll see in the future and whatever you've seen in the past. Analyze it, think about it, and try and understand what they're actually trying to say, and is it useful or not. I've done some bad writing advice videos as well on this channel about trying to get to the understanding, the core of what they're actually saying, and is there any value in it. But you should do that with all authortube videos, especially those who are pushing you to say that self-publishing is the best thing in the world ever. So here's one example. I'm going to read some bits of this because the wording is very important. So if you see me glancing off, that's what I'm doing. So let's go to Storytown. One authortuber gave this advice when she was talking about why she went into self-publishing. And she said, I met a woman who was eventually able to become a full-time author in her old age. And this was a traditionally published woman. And she said she was given the midlist treatment for about 20 years, eventually got enough visibility and attention from a publishing house to make writing her full-time job. And here's the other part of the same story. Listen carefully to the wording. Very important. I also met a self-published author who had done his research. He'd hired a professional editor, and a designer for the book was also very, very good. So he was getting pretty good sales off his first book, and he projected that from his third book, he'd be able to go full-time. Here's the clincher. The old woman was with her traditional publishing house for 20 years before they took her seriously. Let's break down all the reasons why this is just such horrible advice, badly researched, and utter bullshit. First of all, it's massively skewed to make it sound like self-publishing is the easiest thing in the world ever. It's more professional. The wording that's used, a professional editor, a professional book designer. The language is done in a very, very particular way. It's really there to manipulate you and make you believe that this is the only way forward. The second thing, talking about the woman saying, she'd been with them for 20 years and she was an old woman. And it was only after 20 years versus 3 with self-publishing that she was able to go full time. I worked in marketing for 20 years and I know all about language and promotion. So yeah, none of this went past me at all, and it shouldn't for you. Here's the next thing. This person made their decision after meeting 2 authors. That was the sum total of their research. 2 people. And based upon that, they went down the self-publishing route. Brilliant bit of research there. Yes, 2. That's a huge pool of people to rely on. Absolutely. Bollocks. So there's the disproportionate timescales is one thing. There's the focus on the skill level. Traditional publishing has been made to sound like it's very amateurish hour and they don't know what they're doing, versus the professional level of self-publishing. And then there's the talk about the old woman was with the traditional publishing company for 20 years before she gained enough attention from them. So that's the other thing that just shows a lack of understanding of the way that traditional publishing work. Say this woman had a 3-book deal with the publisher and the books came out and they didn't do much promotion, they didn't give much attention. Anyone with 2 brain cells, if it's sold reasonably well, would have gone, actually, you've treated me terribly, I'm going to go somewhere else, they'll give me much better treatment. Why on earth would she stay with them for 20 years? That suggests she's selling well, the fact that she kept staying with them for 20 years. It's just more nonsense. It's just utter shit that this person's spewing. And it's just so annoying because it's just so many lies. The other thing it says is talking about getting enough visibility from the publisher and they weren't getting enough attention. It makes it sound like the publisher was not replying to this person's emails, they blocked their phone calls, and she was out on the street hand selling them to people. It just shows a complete lack of understanding and a complete lack of intelligence, and it's not critically analysing the information at all. It's just taking it on face value, and even then, it doesn't sound true at all. This was just one piece of very bad advice I've seen in a whole sea of shit that's out there on authortube. There is just a lot of it. Now, some of it is people just trying to find their way and they share their journey, and that's brilliant because if you're on the same journey with them at the same stages, then it feels like you have someone that you can talk to and rely on, and that's great. It really makes you feel like a community. I understand that. Absolutely. But if someone comes in with their big shoes saying, this is brilliant, this is the only way to do it, and this is how you can get rich just like me, don't believe them. Just take it with a huge grain of salt, really. If you're an aspiring author, you want to get traditionally published, you want to go self-publishing, whatever it might be, I know you want someone to come in and say, you follow these steps, this is how it works, this is the path to success. But unlike the other people out there, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm going to tell you the truth, that it is tough to get self-published and be a success, and to traditionally published and be a success. They're both very different paths. They require different skill sets, require more time with self-publishing because you have to do a lot of the stuff that's handled by other people. That's part of the deal. That's the kind of where the 2 styles of publishing diverge. But one isn't easier than the other. You could write a book, not show it to anyone, whack on a cover, bang it out, and you might sell a handful of copies if nobody's edited it or anything, but it's not good quality. Why would it do well? You have to work hard on your book, whether you're self-publishing or traditionally publishing it. That's just how it is. When I first told a friend I was going to do this kind of a channel on YouTube and talk to writers and give them the truth, she said, well, you should be a bit more gentle and a bit more kind of kid gloves, but that's just not my style, right? I'd rather be honest with you so you know what you're getting from me up front. And if you can't handle that, then I'm sure there'll be some dislike buttons. You don't know what you're talking about. But whatever, man, whatever. I just don't give a shit. I know what I'm talking about because I've done it. I didn't come up with this out of nowhere. I've done it for years. I'm trying to help people avoid mistakes, learn from what I did, get better and improve their skills as a writer. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to flog you on the best way and anything that's guaranteed to make you an overnight success. It's just nonsense. So critically analyse any advice that you're given on authortube. Look at the person who's giving it. Look up their credentials. Find out what they've done. Are they an enormous success? Have they actually sold any books? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to push you towards something and say, oh, self-publishing's difficult, but we've got this great service that only costs $4.99 for the first year and $12.99 for every year after that, and we'll guarantee you a brilliant sales and blah, blah, blah. Be careful with your money. Be careful with people on authortube. Do your homework. Do your research. If you're thinking about traditional publishing, check some of the other videos that I've got on here. There's a couple about debunking myths to do with traditional publishing. They've done quite well because there again, it's experience and it's knowledge from people that I gathered in person. I went to events and spoke to agents, publishers, editors, listened to the panel, wrote down the notes and put this into a video. So this is not just from me, this is from a bunch of other people I met and spoke to at events. There again, the advice that I'm giving is stuff that I've learned, but also from other people too. That's all I'm going to talk about this week. Check out the other videos on the channel. I look forward to the comments. I'll be back next week.